get our meeting started here. The board meeting of the Board of Education for February 8th, 2022 is called to order at 6:01. For tonight's meeting, any item that will be voted on has been posted on the PPS website under the Board and Meetings tabs. The meeting is being streamed live on PPS TV Services website and on Channel 28, and will be replayed throughout the next 2 weeks. Please check the district website for replay times. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to everyone here. Tonight, we are pleased to have our meetings open to the public for the first time in about a month or so for in-person attendance. I'd like to remind everyone, however, that we continue to follow Governor Kate Brown's statewide indoor mask requirement for all indoor public settings, whether vaccinated or not. Tonight, we have in place mitigation strategies to help keep safe members of the public and staff. Board members and staff in attendance are wearing masks, and most, if not all, are fully vaccinated. We have air purifiers placed in the boardroom. And please be aware of your surroundings, and you do your best to stand apart from those around you. And just a reminder to keep the aisles clear, and if you are holding a sign, to keep it low so not to block the view of those sitting around you. The first thing we'll do is a resolution to recognize National School Counseling Week. This week is National School Counseling Week. And this next item is to recognize and the invaluable support our counselors provide to our school communities. Superintendent Guerrero, would you like to introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Chair DePass. So happy to start off our regular meeting this evening this way. Our school counselors are some of our most essential and critical folks in the school system for all of their support of our students within our school communities. But here to share more highlights about their role and that they critically play is our Chief of Student Support Services, Brenda Martinick, who's going to share some further highlights.
Thank you, Superintendent. Good evening, Chair Lowry, Board, Student Representative Weinberg, and our community members. My name is Brenda Martinick. I'm the Chief of Student Support Services, and I'm so excited to have this resolution before the board tonight. PPS is proud to provide counseling services through our 186 counselors within all of our schools in the district. School counselors are certified or licensed educators. They improve student success for all students by implementing a comprehensive school counseling program. School counselors design, deliver programs, they lead, they advocate, and they collaborate to promote racial equity, social justice, and access for all students by connecting their school counseling program to the PPS vision, our strategic plan, as well as school improvement plans. An example of some areas that our counselors focus on are assisting with academic achievement strategies, applying interpersonal skills with students with mental health challenges, planning for post-secondary options, academic planning and goal setting, short-term counseling for students, providing referrals for long-term support, collaborating with families, teachers, administrators, and our community. Thank you for honoring our school counselors tonight. We're so appreciative of them, their skills, their dedication, and their passion for this work. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Lowry, would you please read the resolution?
Yes. Resolution number 6438, resolution to recognize February 7th through 11th, 2022 as National School Counseling Week. Recitals. A. Portland Public Schools school counselors embrace their role as anti-racist educators by actively looking for ways to interrupt systemic racism in educational policies and practices and integrating anti-racist content in their curriculum to reach all students. B. School counselors are employed in all Portland Public Schools to help students reach their full potential, explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents, as these traits relate to career awareness, academic, and personal social development. C. School counselors provide invaluable support to school communities, including counseling, critical interventions, and school-wide curriculum, all in support of students and families. D. Comprehensive, developmentally appropriate, and prevention-focused school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process, that enables all students to achieve success and prepare students to realize the graduate portrait and lead a more socially just world. E. School counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students realize their full potential. Resolution. The Board of Education of Portland Public Schools extends greetings and best wishes to all observing February 7th through 11th, 2022 as National School Counseling Week. The Board of Education recognizes all Portland Public School counselors for the incredible efforts supporting students through this pandemic, acting as critical first responders for student mental health needs and social emotional support during distance learning and a return to in-person learning.
Thank you, Director Lowry. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 6438, resolution to recognize February 7th through the 11th, 2022 as National School Counseling Week?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the resolution as read.
Second.
Director Green moved. Directors Scott and Hollins both seconded at the same time. We could take that up later. Is there any board discussion? Ms. Powell, is there any public comment? The board will now vote on Resolution 6438, resolution to recognize February 7th through the 11th, 2022 as National School Counseling Week. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please indicate by saying no. And are there any abstentions? Resolution 6438 is approved by a vote of 7-0 with Student Representative Weinberg voting.
Yes.
Thank you.
I just
Proclamation.
want to reiterate our gratitude, if I may, and also recognize how our school counselors had to reinvent themselves last year. Everyone did, but we heard so many incredible stories about how counselors still manage to connect with kids and understand their needs even in remote learning. So our deepest gratitude.
Thank you for starting us off right. I want to also echo what Director Constem said, and I know that the demand for counseling was really, really high, has been very high over the past couple of years due to the COVID pandemic, and just want to shout out to the counselors and the staff that work with counselors every day in schools. Even their hardest day as a counselor is some kids' best hope. So thank you all. So we're now going to have a proclamation in recognition of February as a Black History Month. Black History Month is an annual celebration of achievements by African Americans and a time for recognizing their central role in U.S. history. Also known as African American History Month, the event grew out of the brainchild of noted historian Carter G. Woodson and other prominent African Americans. Since 1976, every U.S. president has officially designated the month of February as Black History Month. At last week's meeting, Dr. Proctor shared a list of instructional resources that are available to educators to provide the histories, stories, and voices of our students who should be centered, honored, and uplifted in school curricula. Director Hollins, would you like to read the resolution, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair to pass. Portland Public Schools celebrates Black excellence to elevate the success of Black students and acknowledge their histories, their futures, in a way that affirms and allows Black students in our care to achieve their fullest potential and thrive to adulthood. Black History Month began in 1915 by historian Carter G. Woodson and other prominent leaders as a way to formally observe the visionary contributions of Black people, and now is a time for recognizing the central role and contributions of members of the African diaspora in U.S. history. The contributions of members of the African diaspora and their endeavors to learn and thrive throughout history and make unforgettable marks in our nation as artists, scientists, educators, business people, influential thinkers, members of the faith community, athletes, political, and government leaders. Reflects the greatness of the people of the African diaspora within the United States. Black history reflects a people with a determined spirit of perseverance and cultural pride in its struggle to equitably share in the opportunities and burdens of a nation founded upon the principles of freedom and liberty for all people. The local community has enriched the diversity of perspectives and experiences in our district. And the Board of Education desires to recognize and honor the achievements and contributions of members of the African diaspora. All students need an opportunity to understand their rich history and common humanity underlying all people, to develop pride in their own identity and heritage, and to respect, know, and accept the identity and heritage of others. In service of the superintendent's audacious strategic framework of targeting universalism shaped by the community-driven vision, we recognize our commitment to center the realities of Black students and liberate them from the oppression embedded in our system that they experience. Throughout leadership and practice, Portland Public Schools is dedicated to goals that advance racial justice and demonstrate anti-racist values, especially for Black communities in the Portland metro areas. The resolve, the Board of Education of the Portland Public School hereby recognize the month of February 2022 as Black History Month and encourage all educators to commemorate this occasion with appropriate ceremonies, instructional activities, and programs. The struggle and achievement of Black people and their role in American history profoundly influences and enriches the culture of the United States. Portland Public Schools acknowledge these contributions and reaffirms its ongoing commitment to building awareness and an inclusive society. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hollins. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 6439, Proclamation and Recognition of February as Black History Month?
I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
Director Green moves, Director Brum Edwards seconds the adoption of Resolution 6349. Is there any board discussion? Ms. Powell, is there any public comment? Okay, the board,
Oh, I was just going to say something.
please.
I hope we find ways that, so we're sitting on a historic board for the first time with 3 Black board members. We have a number of graduates of PPS who have gone on to be, play prominent roles in the state history, like Abel Gordley, the first Black state senator, and others. And I hope that we find a way to celebrate, like PPS should be proud of our many graduates and the people that have been affiliated with us that are history makers this month. So it's not just national figures, but also we have a lot of local history to be proud of the our graduates who have gone on to do amazing things in the community. So,
Thank you very much for that. That is so true, to honor our elders here that are from here. And I think that sounds like a foundation for an
And our
event.
PPS graduate who's the first Black female chair
True.
of the board.
True. I graduated from MLC. My mom called it Camp Run Amok. So it was the 70s. I think I did okay. Thank you for that comment, and thank you. We should definitely honor our elders that are here, that have made significant contributions, and we should recognize them all year round, but particularly during Black History Month. I appreciate your comments. The board will now vote on Resolution 6439, Proclamation and Recognition of February as Black History Month. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
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 Yes. All opposed, please indicate by saying no. We don't expect any opposition on that. And are there any abstentions? Resolution 6439 is approved by a vote of 7-0, with Student Representative Weinberg voting
Yes.
yes. Great. Next, the board will vote on the consent agenda. Board members, if there are any items you'd like to pull for discussion, we'll set those aside for discussion and vote at the end of the meeting, which I recognize has not been our practice since I've been here, but that's the protocol I think we want to follow from here on out. Ms. Powell, are there any changes to the consent agenda? Okay, do I have a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda?
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the consent agenda.
second.
Director Green moves, Director Brum Edwards seconds. Should I just put your name down in the first section every time?
That would be great.
Okay.
I want to be on record as the
Got
one
it.
who made the most moves.
Another history-making moment.
Not a PPS graduate, but bada boom. Is there any Is there any board discussion on the consent agenda? And Ms. Powell, is there any public comment? The board will now vote on Resolution 6400 through 6441 and 6444. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please indicate by saying no. Are there any abstentions? The consent agenda is approved by a vote of 7-0 with Student Representative Weinberg voting
Yes.
great. Thank you. We're now turning to student and public comment. Before we begin, I'd like to review our guidelines for public comment. First, the board thanks you for taking the time to attend this meeting and providing your comments. Public input informs and improves our work, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts, reflections, and concerns. Our responsibility as a board is to actively listen, and to that end, I'd ask each of us to give our full attention to the people in front of us. The board office may follow up with board-related issues raised during public testimony. We request that complaints about individual employees please be directed to the superintendent's office as a personnel matter. And if you have additional materials or items you'd like to provide to the board or superintendent, we ask that you mail them to public comment, all one word, at pps.net. Public comment at pps.net. And please make sure when you begin your comment, you clearly state your name and spell your last name. And our speakers have 3 minutes to speak, and you'll hear a sound after 3 minutes, which means it's time to conclude your comments. Ms. Powell, do we have anyone signed up for student or public comment?
Yes, we have 6 people signed up for public comment. The first is Beth Cantrell.
Did you say Cantrell?
Yes.
Ms. Cantrell?
Okay. The next is Kelly Oravec.
Yeah, please, just help yourself. I know it's intimidating, but just step up to the microphone and state your name and spell your last name, please.
Kelly Orhovec, Orehhovec. Thank you for having me. Hello, my name is Kelly Orhovec, and I am a mother to a 3rd and 5th grader who attend Beach Elementary School in North Portland. Beach is a school that has a co-located Spanish immersion program and neighborhood English program. Both my children lotteried into the Spanish immersion program. My daughter's 5th grade Spanish class has 21 students. My son's 3rd grade Spanish class has 19 students. There are 30 3rd graders in the English class. Spanish third grade, 19. English 3rd grade, 30 students. 19 students versus 30 students. Which classroom would you choose for your child? Our student populations and our co-located programs are quite different. Our English classes have a much larger percentage of historically underserved students who need more academic and behavior support. 30 students who require a high level of support in one class versus 19 students in a Spanish class who do not require a high level of support. Does this make sense to you? Teacher allocation is based on school enrollment with caps on classroom sizes. We wait on fall balancing before we add additional teachers. Every year in the fall after school starts, we ask for additionally desperately needed staff funding in our English instruction classrooms. We will start fighting now for funding and continue fighting until we receive it. We're starting early this year and we won't back down. Why are the class sizes so different? They're different because Beach Elementary does not receive enough funding so we can serve our students in equitable ways. Are we using the ResJ lens to determine teacher numbers? How is the staffing model working to address English instruction staffing shortages at Beach? Please use the ResJ lens to decide how many teachers Beach has in the fall versus a one-size-fits-all process. Last fall, our community created a petition for people to sign asking PPS for immediate teacher hires to support our 2nd and 3rd grade English classrooms. Our community responded in countless ways to help solve the staffing issues, including making countless phone calls, sending emails to leaders and you. As part of the petition, we heard the following comment from a teacher at Beach. He said, "My eyes are filling with tears as I complete this survey. Thank you so much for advocating for the neediest and most deserving of our students. As teachers in the English program, we see the need every day and work tirelessly to address it, but we can't do it without you. Because of the systemic racism and segregation at Beach, I am seriously considering resigning my position at the end of this year. The efforts you are spearheading would make me think hard about staying on to pursue real, meaningful change." After countless phone calls to PPS from community members, an educational assistant started at Beach 6 days ago, shared between the two highest class sizes with only half of the school year remaining. This isn't enough to close the opportunity gap. Mid-year emergency hires don't solve long-term problems. Beach staff, teachers, and students deserve to begin the year with an adequate number of educators and equitable resources. PPS needs to live up to their public statements and goals around equity. You set these intentions, so please let's make sure you live up to your commitments. You have the responsibility to address the barriers to equitable outcomes at Beach and all of our schools.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Next, we have Enrique Arias.
Okay. Out of 5 and a 3-minute speech, I'm going with 3 minute. That one was 3:41, so I got a little chance to breathe, right? Which is good, because I was like really working hard to stay at 3. And I have just, these are emails and letters. I spent this from all the.
Thank you.
All right. Let me see. I'm left-handed, so.
Thank you, Mr. Arias.
Yeah.
Now you have 3 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you really well. Thank
All
you.
right. Hello, my name is Enrique Arias, A-R-I-A-S. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm a parent of 2 children who are in the SDLI program, one at Kellogg and one at McDaniel High School. Both my children attend Bridger High School for elementary years. I believe in a multi-strand program of SDLI and neighborhood at Kellogg. I urge you to listen to the YouTube video titled February 3, 2022 for Southeast Guiding Coalition Meeting Main Room. At about 26 minutes in the meeting, you will hear Richard Smith, principal of Kellogg, as well as Catherine Mary, principal of Marysville, make a statement representing the majority of principals who believe Spanish DLI should remain at Kellogg. I also want to add that Leah Dickey, principal of Harrison Park, supports keeping Spanish DLI at Kellogg. Of the 153 SDLI students currently at Kellogg, 69% identify as Latin or Latinx, 4% Black. Of 153 SDLI students at Kellogg, 95% qualify for free and reduced lunch, versus the MDLI, where 11% of the 117 students qualify for free and reduced lunch. I ask that you please listen to your frontline workers, listen to your principals, please look at this issue through an equity lens. We Latinos are exhausted. Having to flee your homeland is trauma. It's trauma that affected my parents, my siblings, and myself. It's a trauma that you become more aware of as you grow older, and sometimes I find myself checking myself and hoping that I'm not passing on that trauma to my kids. I want my kids to feel a sense of belonging to a community and to have a regular and consistent living space with no worry of having to move or leave the ones they love. Many of us have the same story from some differences. My family left Cuba because of dictatorship. My friends from Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Venezuela, Nicaragua left because of want for work, starvation, wars, direct threats to their lives. All of these countries are naturally beautiful. No one wants to leave paradise. But sometimes you are forced to leave your home and become diaspora. It is a huge trauma to leave your country and start anew in a nation whose language you don't speak. We leave our country, we come to one of the 50 states, then we don't find work or a community to help us, so we have to move again to another city. When we arrive to the city, we then have to move across town to feel safe, to feel not discriminated against, to feel accepted in some way. As parents, being a part of the SDLI program at Kellogg gives us a sense of being rooted and belonging to a greater neighborhood community that is connected to the city. All we want is to stay put in a community long enough to feel safe, to carve out a little space, to find work, to feed our family, have a sense of pride, to find friends beyond our inner circle, to become part of a greater Portland, Oregon. But now I find myself here speaking to you and asking you to please don't make us move again. We are exhausted. This program was part of the opening of
Mr.
Kellogg.
Arias, I'm sorry, I heard the buzzer go off. I was going to allow you a couple of a little bit more.
40 seconds is what I should get. Sorry. It was 3:42 for her. I had it on my timer.
Thank you. I'm very cognizant of that as well,
Okay.
and I was not keeping track, so thank you. Please finish up.
Okay, I will. This program is only 10 seconds. This program was part of the opening of Kellogg. It's only been half a year, but the community has already grown. Teachers, staff, principals, and students are working together to create a safe place for learning and thriving at a crucial juncture in a young person's life, the transition from child to teenager. The SDLI program serves a diverse population and brings together people from many backgrounds and cultures. Taking this program out of Kellogg will break up a community and create more trauma for students who have already experienced so much trauma, including over a year of isolation and online learning. Just as students are finally able to truly get back to school, a threat comes to their school community in the form of being dismantled to fix another school. Please leave the SDLI program at Kellogg and let it thrive in the community that has been created. SDLI and neighborhood will both be better for it. Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Take care.
Ms. Powell?
Next, we have Rachel Team, I believe.
Rachel Team?
I believe so. She's on her way over.
It looks like she's signing on.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. My name is Rachel Timmy. Last name is spelled Thieme. I want to thank you so much for the opportunity to testify this evening and to have a virtual option as well. I'm a parent of a first grader in the Spanish Dual Language Immersion Program, or the DLI program, at Beach Elementary School in the Overlook neighborhood of North Portland. My son is having an excellent first year at Beach. He's in a small class of 18 students with a wonderful communicative teacher who seems to have enough bandwidth to organize class events, manage a class fish, and send regular updates to parents about what the class is learning. It seems like each week he grows more confident in reading and writing and feels happy and connected at school. While our experience at Beach has been very positive so far, I've recently learned that my son is having a very different experience than kids in the English language program. Instead of a class size of 18, their class sizes are often over 30, almost double the number of kids in one classroom. The students in these classes are more likely to be Black and Brown students from the neighborhood, and this disparity is doing them a huge disservice. Furthermore, I understand that in addition to concentrating more kids of color in these classrooms, the English classrooms are also more likely to have more kids with higher needs in need of behavioral support and other resources. And the larger class sizes exacerbate these issues for the kids who really need the attention the most. What makes me particularly angry, though, is how this disparity exists alongside all the resources that my son's class gets, which are offered in the DLI classroom for the purpose of closing an achievement gap for native Spanish-speaking students. However, a very minimal achievement gap exists in his class. The vast majority, nearly all of the students in this small class are white native English-speaking students like my child, who may love learning Spanish, but it's not an essential component to their educational success, yet they're allocated these additional resources in terms of smaller class sizes. The dual language immersion program is an amazing resource for my son, but frankly, in our family, it's a nice to have. We're native English speakers, and there is not an achievement gap to close. The achievement gap at Beach is in the English program, and that needs to be addressed right now. I'm here tonight to ask that the board demonstrate their commitment to racial equity and justice at our school and allocate adequate funding in the district budget now for hiring teachers in the fall for the English program, so we can offer all kids at Beach access to an equitable education. Our teachers and parents shouldn't have to fight for this every fall, as you heard earlier from the other Beach parent. This is something we can and should plan in advance for, starting now with allocating funding in the district budget. It's the right thing to do, and it will make a huge difference in closing the real achievement gap at Beach Elementary School. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Timmy.
Next, we have Autumn Davidson.
Autumn Davidson is also coming virtual.
Yes.
While we're waiting for her, I just want to recognize there was a counselor in the audience. I apologize for missing her and recognizing her. I hope she's still here, but Marquita Guzman, thank you for being here. And thank you for the work you do every day. Hello, Ms. Davidson, can you hear us?
Yes, oops. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm having a little bit of challenge here with my computer. I'm so sorry. I am going to thank you for having me. I apologize because I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty, but that's okay. I'm going to just sort of speak off the cuff then. I had some prepared comments, which I'm not, for some reason, able to access on my computer. So my name is Autumn Davidson. My last name is spelled Davidson. I am here to testify in conjunction with the other two Beach parents who have spoken already. And I really appreciate both of those parents sort of setting the stage for the issue that we're addressing today, which is the inequity in resources at the Beach School. I am a mother to a kindergartner at Beach. She is in the English language program, and she too is having a wonderful experience in her first year of public school. As a new public school parent, I am quickly learning that the intention of the dual language immersion program at Beach is not exactly serving the function that it was intended to, which we all know was to work to close the achievement gap between Native and Native English and Spanish, or Spanish and English speakers. Unfortunately, as we have already heard from the two prior presenters, class sizes, there's a large disparity between the two class sizes in the dual language immersion and in the English program. When kids are transferred into Beach from outside, they are automatically put into the English language program, which disproportionately increases the size of the English language programs and makes it more difficult for the teachers. The students who are in the dual language immersion program often come from outside of our community and raise the average income, which makes the school less ineligible for other resources that they would otherwise be eligible for. And when kids are struggling in the dual language immersion program academically and socially, my understanding is that they are then put back into the English language program, putting again additional strain on resources in that program. So I am here today to request that the board reconsider the funding models that it's currently using to allocate resources to the 2 programs at Beach. Specifically, as the public school board has committed to over and over again reevaluating this from a racial and social justice lens, we ask that you work to allocate more resources to the English language program, and specifically to hire 2 more teachers at that school as within the next year in order to close that gap. So that was what I had to say. I will submit a more formal statement by email. And I do want to thank all of you for being here tonight and for working tirelessly to ensure that our children have a good education and a safe place to go to school. Thank you.
Thank you too.
And I'm going to just try one more time for Beth Cantrell. I think that's it.
Okay, it looks like Ms. Cantrell is not here, and we're ready to move on to the student representatives report, please.
Yes. So I wanted to give an update on the student summit that the district student council is required to do every year. So we've started that planning process, and we're looking at the week of April 11th to hold it. We have determined a tentative date. We're not ready to share it yet, and also location. We're going to be reaching out to the principal and other staff at that location to see if it will work on that day. And then another update, I just wanted to thank PPS staff, policy committee members, and also climate justice leaders that were involved in the climate crisis response policy and coming to an agreement in the past few weeks. I did not think it would happen at all, especially after the long process that we were through. But I am very excited that we were able to reach a point where we were mutually able to agree on one policy. And I'm super excited for students. We've been asking for this for quite a while, and I'm happy to see PPS leading in climate justice. And lastly, I just wanted to recognize, as we already have done, this month as Black History Month. I also want to thank and also recognize the Black excellence among our students, teachers, staff, this board. Thank you all.
Thank you. Very nicely done. We're going to go to board committee and conference report, starting with you, Director Constam. Audit committee.
No report from the audit committee. We are meeting on Thursday.
Director Hollins.
Yes. So we had our facilities and operations committee meeting with the focus on Harriet Tubman Middle School relocation piece. I think it was a great conversation. Staff did a great job with the due diligence report that they had presented. And so moving forward, we're just going to look to continue with our community engagement on that decision of doing a site selection. Thank you.
Thank you. Policy committee.
Thanks. So we've got a first reading of the climate policy that Student Rep Weinberg referenced, and also we're going to be approving the student representative and district student policy, council policy changes in a second reading this evening. We have a number of items sort of on the docket coming up that open for board member and staff comment on. One is a potential streamlining of the formal complaint process. Just wondering if I was going to get your attention. No, for the streamlining.
Not. Just tap me and I'll tap him.
No, I was just getting like the reaffirming on the streamlining. And also working with Chief Garcia potentially on fundraising that happens in our schools and how we build equitable foundations in ways in which we can sort of harness and tap the community spirit and energy around wanting to support our schools. And then we'll just keep rolling through the rescissions as well.
Fantastic, thank you. Director Lowry?
No report. Our next meeting for intergovernmental is the 16th.
Director Green?
This is going to be hard to believe, but I don't really have to have a whole report. As much as I want to say something a whole lot and talk more often, I have no report. Dang.
I feel like you need an amen.
We're having a little chatter amongst ourselves here, but we're going to move on to the annual Multnomah Education Service District resolution.
Actually, can I do it? Elections Task Force?
I apologize. Yes, please.
We don't usually, but I do have an update this time. So the Elections Task Force did meet on February 7th. Again, members of that, myself, Director Hollins, and Directors Brim Edwards and Director Constam attended that meeting as well. We will be coming back to the board on at the next board meeting on February 22nd, and PSU will be presenting the maps that they have drawn up for redistricting, based on the census. There are also some policy questions we'll be talking to the board about. Again, it won't be a decision on the 22nd, but more talking about it is mandatory that we make those changes based on the census. There are some additional changes that we may want to make as a district to how we do elections. So we'll be introducing that on the 22nd, starting the conversation, and then hopefully getting some direction from the board. The task force will meet after that every 2 weeks to sort of continue to work through that in timelines. Obviously, the board needs to make the final decision. So the goal of the task force is really just to help synthesize the information and bring it back. So happy to answer any more specific questions.
Fantastic. I think you all should have gotten I shared some data that it's a little bit outdated from 2018 that Vox put together about school boundary issues. I hope you have a chance to open it and look at it. There's an interactive link within there where you can map your school district and you can see what the statistics for Portland look like. So it'd be interesting. That was the prior census, however, so I'm sure the population has shifted somewhat in the 10 years.
Yep.
All right, thank you so much for that. Now we will move on to the annual Multnomah Education Service District resolution process. Superintendent Guerrero.
Thank you, Chair. It's my pleasure some of you are familiar with this ritual. Annually, the Multnomah Education Service Director, Superintendent, comes down here to the Portland Public School headquarters and presents for your affirmation sort of the array of services that they make available for component member districts like PPS, and Director Hollins will be even more familiar with it because he used to sit on the other dais. But I'm particularly sort of pleased to introduce this item because there's a new face here we haven't had in front of us. So Dr. Paul Coakley was appointed the Multnomah ESD Superintendent in July 2021. We really haven't had the opportunity to have him in front of us to present this item, but more importantly, have a moment to congratulate him on his appointment. And just personally, I want to say this publicly, my appreciation for Paul as a colleague, as a critical thought partner. And I know we're celebrating Black History Month here, but we often find ourselves in very similar spaces in our advocacy. And Dr. Coakley serves as the state of Oregon's only African-American male superintendent. So our work is not finished here, but Dr. Coakley is going to present the MESD local service plan for your affirmation tonight. Paul?
Thank you. Good evening, Portland Public School Board. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you this evening. So before I joined MESD, prior to that I was the superintendent at Centennial School District for 5 years, and I actually started my educational career at Martin Luther King Elementary here in Portland Public Schools in 2001. And I just want to also share my appreciation for Superintendent Guerrero for his collaborative leadership, his partnership and his advocacy, and his support for students, families, and educators across the region. And then I wanted to thank Chair DePass for participating in Multnomah County's Legislative Summit last month and talking to legislators about key issues that we're advocating for as educators across the state. And then I wanted to appreciate Director Hollins for representing Portland Public Schools in our regional school board equity team. Those conversations are important. We're trying to get that work restarted, and we would like to have 2 members of every single board across the county there in those conversations so we can really operationalize the equity lens and kind of do it in a consistent way where we have common language and we're using it to move our policies forward. So I'm here to just briefly give you more information about the local service plan, which you guys are all familiar with. So the local service plan is a constantly updated and reviewed. It's kind of like a living document, and we get feedback on it every year based on what district's needs are, and then we refine and adjust it annually. And so the districts provide input on the service plan, and then based on what Multnomah County's needs are, we make those adjustments to the service plan so that it meets the needs of each district. Each district has different things that they need to specify with their funding, and so it's really a flexible plan. And one of the things about ESDs is they usually try to set those plans up so districts have control of those funds. And at MESD, we make more control for school boards than most ESDs because we're using a full menu system. And so the way that the funding works is ESDs provide sources to component districts of resolution dollars and also contract services, and then districts get to choose how they use those resolution dollars and those contract services. And so for PPS specifically, you guys are using our school health services with nurses, et cetera, to support different things that are happening for the pandemic. You guys are also using special education services specific to your students' needs and your student population. You're using some instructional services, and then you've also used technology services through the ESD. And the plan that we put forward this year is very similar to the one that you guys had last year, with a little bit more resources focused on school health services. And so other than that, there's one key program highlight that's across the region that PPS has been an instrumental part of that I wanted to share, which is the Grow Your Own program. So MESD is now managing a regional strategy to really build a more racial and linguistic diverse educator workforce through our Grow Your Own program. And nearly 100 BIPOC classified staff and community members have joined that program this year, which has doubled the number of what it was previously. And then through public, private, and grant funding, that allows us to provide wraparound services for funds, as well as tuition, books, fees, and emergency expenditures for the participants in that program. And we're also partnering with culturally specific organizations to identify, recruit, and support those diverse educators that are in the program. And then we've launched Teach for Liberation, which is a regional affinity group and leadership support for the educators in the program. And so that's my quick update, and I also just want to thank you for your continued support and your partnership as we work to support the students of Multnomah County the best way we can as we navigate this new educational landscape. And so we will continue to be flexible and responsive to your needs, and we will update the plan and make adjustments based on what your needs are here in PPS. And that concludes my superintendent's report.
Congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you.
And thank you for that. Do we have any questions for Mr. Coakley?
I have a question.
Dr. Coakley, excuse me. Thank you.
Nice to see
Doctor
you.
in the house.
About the Grow Your Own program. So can you tell me how that cohort comes together, and is that a partnership with a particular higher ed partner, or just a little bit more about the mechanics there?
Yeah, so it is connected to Portland State and PCC, and it's coming together through a grant partnership that's led by MESD, and we actually did the recruitment. And this year, the way we doubled the number is we ended up getting culturally specific partners from Latino Network. So now there's about 30 new classified staff that have joined the program to get teacher licensure that actually came from Latino Network. And what we are doing is we're setting it up to where once they're graduated from the program, we want to offer them a job in Multnomah County, any one of our component districts, and really get those educators hired, a pathway to a school district and a job.
So they're all current employees of one of our districts?
Right now, they're mostly working in Latino Network, but some of them are in classified positions across the county. Yep.
I was curious about the Teach for Liberation cohort. It sounds like a learning cohort. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
And it's also affinity spaces. So it's kind of coaching and support and wraparound for the participants that are in the program, so we could really retain them and also figure out what the barriers are that they're facing and help them as we learn more about the barriers they're facing.
That's fabulous. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Coakley, for joining us tonight, and I guess we'll see you next year.
All right. Thank you for having me.
If not before. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 6446?
So moved.
Ooh.
Ooh, I think there's a... Okay now.
I see you.
Okay.
I see. I'm a second. I'm still making moves. Well, I'm 30 then. I'm 30.
I didn't hear the second. It was...
Chair to pass, I just want to note it's 6442. The script may not match the resolution.
Okay,
but I think-
6442.
Yes.
So do I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution
I'll make a motion for the
6442?
right one.
Director Constam moved. She gets this one. Director Holland seconds. Director Green thirds. Everybody gets a turn here. We're using all the skills we learned in kindergarten.
Making moves in kindergarten?
I actually didn't go to kindergarten because I skipped to the first grade.
Okay.
Is there any board discussion about Resolution 6442? And Ms. Powell, is there any public comment?
No.
Okay, the board will now vote on Resolution 6442. Thank you, Ms. Large, for catching that clerical error. The board will vote on Resolution 6442, Annual Multnomah Education Service District Resolution Process. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please indicate by saying no. Are there any abstentions? Resolution 6442 is approved by a vote of 7-0, with Student Representative Weinberg voting
Yes.
great. Thank you. Academic Administrator Compensation Superintendent Guerrero, would you please introduce this next item?
Yes, I would actually. This evening, we're seeking the board's authority on a new administrative salary structure, but here to tell you more of the details is our Chief of Human Resources, Sharon Reese, who will tell you what an important opportunity this is to recruit and retain school administrators.
Good evening, directors. Thank you for having me this evening. I want to introduce the academic administrator salary structure to you. There's no question that our academic administrators have a direct impact on school climate and on the conditions needed to foster learning. One example of this, numerous research studies measure the consequential impact of an effective principal on advancing student achievement, identifying the connection between the principal's influence on school culture, on teacher hiring and development, and on other leadership responsibilities that impact students. Our strategic plan recognizes the importance of investing in our workforce, calling on us to develop a diverse, high-quality, thriving workforce. So tonight, you have before you a resolution authorizing the budget to upgrade our academic administrator salary structure. That's a little bit of a mouthful. We are asking for this for a number of reasons. The hiring season for next year is right now. To recruit and retain administrators ready, willing, and able to make a difference for our students and school staff, we need next year's salary structure to inform the discussions that we're having with candidates and with our staff today. We struggled with recruiting last year. That's not a secret. The labor shortage impacted administrator hiring and made for hires after the school year began this year, which is of course not ideal for our students or our school staff. We need to make some adjustments to be competitive in the market. I'll give you an example of that. It takes an administrator on our salary structure 10 years to reach the top of our of the steps in the salary structure. That lags way behind the market. The market for that averages 4.8 years. Also, it's not, that is unlike any of our other salary structures internally. We have issues with salary compression that limit career development options that might not just be vertical career progress, but also lateral or stretch assignments and other ways to increase career development. It's our intention, and I think we've heard the superintendent talk about this before, to provide options for employees to grow and thrive at Portland Public Schools for the entirety of their career. So from a recruiting and retention standpoint, a competitive and well-structured, thoughtful salary plan is table stakes for investment in our academic administrator talent. I'd like to add one note. Of course, a long-term talent strategy cannot rest solely on our compensation structure, nor does it. Earlier this evening in the consent agenda, the board voted on moving our Wallace Equity-Centered Pipeline Initiative forward with a contract with Lewis & Clark on administrator prep programs. So I am excited to take your questions this evening about this resolution.
Board members, do we have questions for Ms. Reese?
I do. So thanks for bringing this forward and for this work. I think it's a really important piece, given that our principals really are sort of at the building level, our school leaders, and I think that's an important piece of, I think, how we can support them by having an equitable and market-based compensation system for them. A question I had is, and this may relate to, since we don't know yet all the components of it, but it may relate to the adjustments in pay, but also I'm interested in what else we're doing in terms of the retention of principals and school leaders at our highest need schools.
Yes, well, we are looking at a number of options within the salary structure to differentiate compensation there. Those haven't all been settled because we are continuing to do some iterations about what some of the plans are for next year. And of course, we have a strong area senior director team who spend quite a bit of time providing support to our principals, and we have one area senior director who's focused on our CSI schools. In addition, we have some principal mentoring programs, and this year we have 2 principals on special assignment that provide additional support and mentoring to our principals.
Great, I'm glad to hear that. Just a follow-up, I know that we'd done either through previous surveys, but are we, and there was an equity audit, is there going to be like a follow-up next year if you take the compensation and the other things, supports we're doing to check in with our principals? It's just been a super stressful year with everything that's going on, whether we've hit the mark or there's more needed to be done?
Yeah, the salary structure that we are talking about right now is actually done in conjunction with listening sessions and a couple of working sessions with administrators. So we took the experience of our administrators and their input to help design this. That's one of the ways, right, that we are checking in with our administrators. And of course, we're in regular communication and engagement with them. When you talk about a survey specifically, we have the school climate survey, and we are looking at other ways in which we can gauge what is how are our administrators doing.
I just want to take a moment to recognize that our building administrators are our non-represented employees. And so as a matter of course, we review salary structures with our bargaining units on a regular basis. And so I appreciate the district being proactive here in recognizing that market adjustments are necessary. And that's a very personal and human thing, because it's heartbreaking. We see each year we have lost some excellent administrators in the last few years to neighboring districts, primarily based on salary, or we've been unable to attract talented new administrators. So this is really important, and I appreciate the district's leadership, since these questions don't come up in the normal course of a collective bargaining conversation.
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
So go out and hire a bunch of really awesome people.
I want to also
and retain a bunch of really awesome people too. Yes.
I love that. Go out and hire a bunch of awesome people. I'm really supportive of this because I think PPS, wants to be the employer of choice, and the hiring there's competition out with neighboring districts that are also recruiting top staff and administrators, and so yeah, I'm very much in favor of leveling up the salary structure.
Thank you.
Is there, Ms. Powell, is there any public comment?
No.
So the board, or is there any more comment? Director Hollins?
Yes, hold on.
Sorry.
Don't worry. I have just a couple quick questions. So as we know, with student achievement, especially for our Black and brown kids, having representation and folks that look like them in the buildings, how would this increase assist in the recruitment of administrators of color?
So starting with this is why I talk about a salary structure as being table stakes. You have to compensate fairly, and you have to compensate competitively. Administrators of color are in high demand, and so we want to have attractive wages to attract them here and not give them reasons to leave for other districts. So that is part of that.
Then that goes into my second question. Given the competitive market, is this going to be enough for us to be competitive?
Yeah, I think this will make us competitive. As I was saying before, no talent investment strategy can be just about the compensation package or even the compensation and benefits package. It is about what does it take to create the conditions for employees to thrive in our workforce. And I believe that this will provide that in terms of the element of a competitive and fair compensation structure that allows and encourages career growth.
Okay, last question. So given that the added addition of money, what are we looking or doing that supports like the culture that we have here, which I know that's some reason why a lot of administrators have left. How are we addressing that?
Well, that is every leader's responsibility to contribute to a positive work culture. That is some of the work that you're seeing coming out of the Wallace Grant, and that being an equity centered pipeline. And in our entire strategic plan is about, frankly, in my opinion, about creating the culture and conditions where our students and our educators of color thrive. So I think it's in everything that we are doing and everything that we are bringing forward. Yes, my pleasure.
Are there any further board questions or comments before we move ahead? Student Representative Weinberg or Director Constam?
I just really appreciate the piece about decreasing the amount of time that it takes to get toward the top of the pay scale, because I know that that has been one of the most significant enticements from other districts. One of the places where we were the most out of whack.
And one of the years of service, right, is when it's one of our retention issue points, inflection points.
I just want to, again, highlight that this came out of listening sessions with our administrators, and again, the work that with the Wallace Grant and with other pieces that the staff is doing to really try to meet administrators where they are and support them and make cultural change, to change some of the things we've identified, I think, in our questions tonight that are problems. So thank you, Superintendent, for your leadership in really valuing our administrators by being proactive in this way, and to Chief Reese, again, your ability to really hear what staff is saying that they need and find wonderful solutions to try to help us retain the high quality leaders that we have and attract those new ones.
Thank you, Director Lowry, and thank you, Chief Reese. Do I have a motion?
Yes.
Never mind.
Yes, we
We
have a
already,
motion.
Director Green moves.
Second.
Do I have a, I'm just going to start asking for a second, I
There you
think.
go.
Second.
There you go.
I'm-
She's getting it.
I'm hard to train. Director Green moves and Director, I missed who seconded it.
See, everybody wants to be a part of getting our staff.
Everybody
what
wants
they
to
need
see
to
their,
move
their,
forward. Everybody
they want to
wants be
see
in
their
that one.
names in the minutes.
Yeah, so this-
I understand. Director Green moves and Director Constam seconds the adoption of Resolution 6445. Is there any board discussion? Or, Ms. Powell, is there any public comment?
No.
The board will now vote on Resolution 6445, academic administrator compensation. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
All opposed, please indicate by saying no. And are there any abstentions? Resolution 6445 is approved by a vote of 7-0, with Student Representative Weinberg voting.
Yes, and also, I'm super glad that we passed this because Cleveland's been through obvious high turnover of principals. So I understand why we need to have consistent leadership in our schools, because it is hard to set a positive culture when we constantly have year after year principals cycling through schools. So thank you.
And I think Principal Watkins has ably answered that call now in the last couple of years, but yes, it has been a very difficult time at Cleveland.
So Chair, thank you, Directors. I also want to express appreciation. I have the benefit of getting to do the final interview with every principal that comes aboard at Portland Public Schools, and inevitably in response to the question I always ask, well, why Portland Public Schools? They often describe the vision that we've laid out and the unabashed focus in our equity-centered work. And oftentimes we have put out the offer and then they've seen the numbers not quite be as competitive. And I think this will be very helpful in making sure that we land the talent that we need leading our school community. So thank you.
Thank you for those comments.
Thank you.
And now the moment we've all been waiting for, and some of us didn't believe we would be here today, the first reading of the Climate Crisis Response Policy. And I'm going to ask Director Brim Edwards to please introduce the proposed policy.
Thank you, Chair DePass. I'm going to just say at the start that I joined Student Rep Weinberg, and I'm not sure that I thought this day was going to actually arrive. But actually, our last meeting was more just of a moment of celebration and doing a little cleanup as we moved it forward. So tonight we're having the first reading or the introduction of the Climate Crisis Response, Climate Justice, and Sustainable Practices Policy. I want to thank my fellow committee members, Chair DePass, Director Green, and Director Lowry, as well as Student Rep Weinberg, and then also the District Student Council representative to the committee, Danny Cage. At every meeting, we had a full complement of staff that were instrumental in helping us put this together. I want to thank specifically the superintendent, Aaron Pressberg, and Liz Large, who helped shepherd changes and negotiations and discussion about language through. Also, really want to thank the community members who arrived. Well, first of all, they were the impetus for the policy and really provided a catalyst, sometimes a hot catalyst, to our work. And but I think all of us together, I will just say, we approached it with a common spirit and a goal. And
as you're talking about all the people who helped shape this policy, I think we'd be remiss in not including former school board members Rita Moore and Scott Bailey, who were very active in working on this policy in the first year.
They were right here. I just hadn't got through to everybody yet. Thank you, Director Lowry. Yes, because this was started as a policy in the previous policy committee and was a carryover. We had more than 10 meetings since January of 2021. And I think it's worth noting that this is a big, bold policy. And I'm going to highlight just two things, and there's lots of sub-goals underneath it. But the two overarching objectives of the policy are emission reductions, that PPS will reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030 using the 2018-2019 school year baseline and reach net zero emissions by 2040. And it will use a scope 1 and 2 tracking process. And in addition, the other big objective is engagement, resilience, and wellness. The districts will take steps to prepare schools for the effects of climate change and will ensure staff and students learn about and engage in climate solutions, climate resiliencies, and climate justice practices. And the way the policy is structured, it goes through a number of goals that were well discussed. And again, I want to thank staff and the community members that really looked not only at how our infrastructure impacts the climate and how we're going to get to net zero, but also how we support our student voices who are active climate warriors and working for climate justice and climate action, and how we also support the staff in their work, because PPS is, while we're a school system, we're also probably one of the largest property owners in the city. We've got buses and cars and everything moving across the city, and we have a large footprint, and therefore we can make a big difference. And so I'm not going to go through each of the elements of the policy. It'll be posted, and I want to welcome the three board members who aren't on the policy committee to attend the next meeting, or if you have amendments that you want to bring to the committee or want the committee to consider, it'd be great to get them advanced so that staff can be ready to share their perspective about them. Just kind of that's the spirit and the way we've worked in committee, that if people have ideas, that everybody gets a chance to sort of weigh in on them and see them in advance. So I would welcome that. Depending on how much comment we get, it may or may not be a 21 day period before we have our second reading. But we have another policy committee meeting. I'm sure we'll have comment and discussion, but I would welcome the non-committee members to join in the climate discussions. We've had, as I said, 10 meetings that have been devoted in many ways to just the substance of this, and had some great discussions. And I do want to just call out the community members who, even when they disagreed with us and argued vigorously their points, I think we were able to reach, see the commonalities in our vision and what we wanted for the district in relation to climate. So with that, I'll just do the formal language. The proposed policy will be posted on the board website, and the public comment period is a minimum of 21 days. Contact information for public comment will be posted with the policy. The board depending on the amount of public comment and any revisions to the policy, we may have a second reading or approval of the policy at our March 1st meeting.
So the posting is for a minimum of 21 days, and our board meeting is in 21 days. Is that correct?
Yes. I think it's high, well, I don't know what to predict with public comment, but.
I'm just looking at the calendar and
Yeah. So
doing the math.
if we got a significant amount of public comment in the last couple of days after the policy committee meeting, I'm sure we'd carry it over for
One more.
another discussion.
Great, thank you, and congratulations. Maybe it's a little premature, but thank you for your work on this, and specifically for getting all those voices in the room together on the page. So we're next going to consider the second reading of the Student Representative and District Student Council Policy, 1.20.012P. Director Brum Edwards, will you please introduce the Student Representative and District Student Council Policy before I ask for a motion?
Sure.
Excuse me.
Before we move on from the climate policy.
Sorry, I just wanted to quickly say how thankful I am for the community engagement and also the staff and board willingness to not just limit our view to an emissions-based policy. We added we had from the get-go the second and third pillars where we focus on student and community wellness, and also educating our students on the climate crisis and climate change and how to actively be engaged in that work. So I'm thankful that we have such an audacious policy that wasn't just an easy emissions, we'll cut our emissions by 2040.
Thank you for that really important point. All right.
So we had the first reading of the board policy, which is the student representative and district student council policy. This came about, staff brought forward some recommended changes to the current policy. The policy committee had some discussions. We made some revisions. There was a unanimous recommendation to the board for a first reading. We had our first reading. We haven't had any public comment. I should say before we had the first reading, I did at Student Representative Weinberg's invitation, I attended the District Student Council meeting and had a discussion with the council about the changes and why we were making changes. We had a really, I think, good discussion about them. And I should flag that I'm anticipating that we talked about some other changes that students were interested in, and because we need to, there's a reason why we needed to move this now. We're going to move that now, but that I've committed to swinging back with the students and having a discussion about some other changes that we could consider. And the reason that we wanted to move forward with this is there's a couple primary changes in this policy that we're making, but one of them is the way that the members of the district student council become members of the councils, and that this policy now allows for two different paths for students to become members of the district student council, either by appointment or by election. And also then to be clear that whichever path they arrive, whatever process their school uses, that they have equal rights on the district student council. And that's really important because those are the members that elect the new student rep. And one of the reasons why we wanted to do that this time was to prepare for the spring election of the next student rep. So those are some of the changes. The other changes is the bylaws need to be aligned with policies and administrative directives. There was also inconsistencies about who could be the student rep. One policy said you had to be a senior. The other policy said you could either be 10th, sophomore to senior. This policy is either 10th grade or higher, so we've opened the aperture of who's eligible. And it also sets out a revised process for removal of the student rep, if that's ever, that I know of. It never happened in PPS history, but having a process by which is clear and transparent for everybody. So those are the major changes. no significant student comment. I want to again thank the thoughtful engagement, not only of Student Representative Weinberg, but also staff who support the district student council and who drafted these changes, because I think it'll put us, the council, in just clear up ambiguities that existed. Did you want to add something?
Did you have anything to add, Student Representative Weinberg?
Just slightly. The change for the 10th through 12th graders is very timely because we're going to be holding our student rep elections in 3 to 4 weeks in the middle of March. So there'll be a new student rep elect soon.
Fantastic. What's your role in convening and managing this process?
So largely it's going to be the liaison to the district student council holding the process. We have agreed upon a timeline already, so March 1st we'll be announcing who's going to be running for the student rep position, and then hold an election on the March 8th. So we should have an elected student rep a week after March 8th.
Before the spring break,
The week before spring break, yes.
to give everybody a whole week to celebrate.
Yes.
That's fantastic. Congratulations on that. I already know I have a motion,
You do have a motion.
and so I'm going to ask now for a second to adopt Resolution 6443, Student Representative and District Student Council Policy, number 1.20.012P.
Second.
Got it. Director Green moves. Director Holland seconds the adoption of Resolution 6443. Is there any further board discussion? Ms. Powell, is there any comment?
No.
Okay, the board will now vote on Resolution 6443, Student Representative and District Student Council Policy 1.20.012P. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please indicate by saying no. Are there any abstentions? Resolution 6443 is now approved by a vote of 7-0, with Student Representative Weinberg voting,
Yes.
of course.
I just want to say congratulations, Jackson. I know that this was something that the prior student rep had been working on, and you guys have been talking about this for a long time, how to make these elections clear and equitable and fair, and acknowledging all the different structures that schools have for student government. So congratulations on getting this passed and making the situation better for all students.
Yeah, probably at least my 3.5 years so far, we've had kind of at least some kind of conversation about this, and I think the proposed changes that we'll be bringing soonish to Director Brim Edwards will continue that work.
Yes.
And I think I would like to, just say, this is fantastic. If there was anything that I wanted to get on the board about, it should be about the climate change and about a policy that's going to allow more of our students to take part in the governance of what we do as a school and just being made aware of it.
So you're already done in your first year.
I'm done. I'm ready to go. The only thing that I think I'd like to add before I take out of here completely is that, and I don't, maybe we have, or maybe it's already listed, but that we also start looking at our CBOs and see if they've got students within their school systems that could also be a part of our. I mean, I think that would be ideal as well, because those students are on their way and they're part of our system. So if we could somehow, and I don't know, I definitely wasn't going to bring that up as I don't want to vote without that. But now that we've got it on the books and it's on the table and we're not taking it back, no takebacks, I wanted to put this piece out there that I don't know if that means that we need to do something different or we need to talk about it, but that's something that I think we also need to be looking into.
Yeah, Director Green, I think a couple of years ago, we opened the aperture beyond just the comprehensive high schools to really try and reach out to some of the other high school programs, but not the CBOs. And it seems that when we get this next batch of proposed changes, which again, we just want to get this batch done before the elections, but we certainly, and you're in luck, you're on the policy committee, so you can propose some language and we'll look to see how we can
Well,
be
I
more
talk. I
inclusive.
do talk a lot, so I'm sure I can come up with something.
Yeah, it is actually on what we were going to propose anyways, so yeah.
Oh, look, see? That's great minds. Great minds. I knew I liked that guy.
Okay, we're going to move on to the resolution to authorize superintendent's contract extension. And please forgive me, I brought a little soapbox underneath my desk here. I want to thank my board colleagues for coming together to vote on a contract that supports the extension of superintendent of schools contract through June of 2024. Superintendent Guerrero has my full support and confidence that he's the right leader to continue this work, this important work of ensuring our school district becomes the best in the nation because of the work we are doing to address systemic inequities on behalf of Black, Native, Latinx, Asian Pacific Islander, immigrant, and students in our district. I want to additionally and especially thank my colleagues, directors Constam and Brett Edwards, who were part of the team that brought the superintendent to the district in the first place. So thank you. You guys are sticking it out, and thank you for making the good choices you did in 2017.
Thank him for sticking it out.
That's coming. We're joyful today. And Superintendent, I want to specifically thank you for being here and committing yourself to our city, even if it's imperfect, and for addressing the issues around student achievement that aren't unique here. I want to thank you personally for displaying the courage to address deeply entrenched and troubling opportunity gaps by working to develop a culturally responsive instructional framework for PK-12 curriculum, for working to win the $8 million Wallace Foundation grant and collaborating with Lewis and Clark College on the Equity-Centered Pipeline Initiative that we heard from Dr. Coakley that will increase the numbers of administrators of color in our district, and we know that that leads to better student outcomes, for standing up to hate and supporting our other superintendents of color around the state. We got a recent report that said there are 9 superintendents of color in the state, and if we were going to have an equitable distribution, we would have 80. So we're behind on that, but we're doing our part to increase that pipeline, and I want to thank you for that. For the development of a strategic plan that demonstrates your understanding that sustainable, long-term, cultural, and systemic change must not fall victim to the urgency of white supremacy, and it must take an inclusive and a long-term approach. For embracing our communities of color as partners and increasing district investment and partnerships with culturally specific organizations to implement our Res-J strategies that are proven to support a student's academic, cultural identity, and emotional well-being. And for establishing and reinforcing structures and accountability measures so we can gauge our progress, and continuously improve. We know, and I know, that we share the understanding that your most important priority is to create the conditions so our brilliant Black, Native American, Asian Pacific Islander, Latinx, and immigrant students thrive, and that their academic success is not predicted by pernicious racial patterns of disparity. I also believe we have the right board in place to support you in doing your best work here, Superintendent. The board has the job of both supporting you and holding you accountable for doing your best in service of our students, especially our Black, Indigenous, Asian Pacific Islander, immigrant, and Latino students. Please know that we are all here for that, and we are prepared to walk with you in our community's journey to greatness. And I want to speak for just a moment to acknowledge the system that we're working in, because I know that there may be some in our community who don't have the full perspective of the work before us. It's easy to take a cheap shot here, and a catchy tweet there, without understanding the full breadth and depth of the work that's done here. And I don't blame people for not understanding how the sausage is made. I'm still learning that myself. I want to put out a call to action to our community to stay here, stay engaged with us, to get the context and read the full story. That's all sides of the story, and help us write the next great American novel. Know this. The education system in the U.S. and in Portland is actually working exactly the way it was designed to. The system that formed the foundation of education in America, like other American institutions, is racist. The education system was designed by white people to educate white students. Excuse me. And countless policies, practices, and protocols have been in place to reinforce these culturally racist messages that Black and Native students are less, that can't learn, whether in boarding schools where Native American students were forced to unlearn their language and cultures, or in school districts around the country that fail, discipline, and suspend and expel Black children, American public schools have reinforced false narratives that are racist and, more importantly, they're untrue. The foundation of this very education system, the founding beliefs, the policies, and our practices all build upon those lies. I believe we have a school board in place, a district leader, and a community who are ready to intentionally examine the system and who are prepared to challenge our current state in favor of one that sees the brilliance of our students and will work tirelessly to be part of reimagining what's possible. Superintendent, thank you so much for your service in times of great uncertainty, and thank you for your unwavering commitment to living our mission. We provide rigorous, high-quality academic learning experiences that are inclusive and joyful. We disrupt racial inequities to create vibrant environments for every student to demonstrate the excellence. I'm really honored to serve our community of schools, principals, teachers, students, and families with you. And now my soapbox is going to go back under the desk. Thank you, and I didn't realize this was in front of me here. So, thank you for being here. I can't express my appreciation enough.
I was going to say, and for staying.
And for staying. I'm looking at Director Green because I'm kind of like a trained puppy now. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 6446?
Yes, you have a motion.
The resolution to authorize superintendent contract extension. We got another Green Hollins.
Dream team.
You know, and DePass thirds. I don't want to be. I want to see my name in the minutes. Is there any board discussion tonight?
I guess I'll start because I'm the old timer here. Thank you for acknowledging that. But just speaking from that vantage point, I don't want to belabor it, but I do want to go back to when he showed up at our doorstep. We were in disarray as a district. We did not have the right people in the right places in the central office. We had dozens and dozens and dozens of vacancies. We did not have a standards-aligned curriculum. We did not have a strong system of professional development. We did not have all kinds of things. And so I just think it's really important to recognize how much foundational building has taken place since 2017. There was just not a lot of traction where we needed it. And so I'm really proud of sort of the trajectory that we are on now, pandemic be damned. But we have really pivoted also as a board, starting in 2018, to really focus our governance practices on student achievement and on being very student-centered in how we, as a governing body, conduct our business. And that culminated in our own development of our board goals, which are now really well aligned with our strategic plan that the superintendent spearheaded. So it's a phenomenal amount of work that has taken place. And we've had the opportunity to sit with Dr. Proctor and Dr. Adams to really get into the nitty-gritty about what are the proven strategies that we need to employ that will give us the confidence that our students will be able to soar in the way that they deserve to, in the way that we need them to. It's not a haphazard pursuit. We know that there are strategies that will make the difference for our kids, but those have not been consistently deployed in this district, and we haven't had the ability to do that. And I think we do now, and I'm deeply, deeply grateful for the faces that I see in the audience right now. I had the opportunity to be in schools today with Dr. O, and just that laser focus on instructional practices and in differentiated learning. I mean, you have built a phenomenal team, and you have built a phenomenal structure. And I really appreciated what you said, Chair DePass, about our being here to support you and catch you and provide you with the resources that you tell us that you need. I had just that discussion today with Dr. Hollins about, okay, we believe in you. We stand behind you. And as a board, especially as we enter our budget process right now, you tell us what tools you need to get the results that we're expecting for our kids. And that's where the accountability piece comes into play. We are really focused on results. But you're the guy who knows how to get them. And you're the guy who knows how to hire the right people who know how to get them. And we're here to support you. So personally, I look at you and I think about the little guy with the Spanish speaker with the violin and the football pads, walking to school with that love of learning that is evident every single day as you show up in this job and as you interact with kids, little kids and big kids. I think about you as the paraprofessional who found a spark that maybe being an educator was going to be your life's passion and your life's work, and just really deeply grateful to have you here in this community serving our children.
I just wanted to add, don't forget the little briefcase and the little suit and tie.
Always. So I just want to say that I am so thankful that we're at this place with this contract. And when I was chair last year, it was something we couldn't quite in the last, we ran out of time and near the end zone. So I'm glad we're finally crossing that line. But I just want to say that when I first met you, Superintendent, it was at a meeting for foundation parents. And I asked you a question that was a little combative. And Jonathan actually shut down the meeting after I asked you the question. You did. We were over time, but and I had read the stories in the Oregonian about PPS, and I wasn't sure about you. And then I started participating in the vision process. And then I decided to run for school board. And, one of the great gifts for me was last year when I was chair in the midst of this completely crazy pandemic. As you know, Chair DePass and Brim Edwards and Constan, when you're chair, you talk to the superintendent more often. And I had already been converted in that first year, seeing the path we were on, how you lived out the things we were saying about the vision and the strategic plan. But then last year when we were like, something would come up and the governor would make an announcement and you'd be on the phone to me and you'd be like, okay, so here are 3 plans I have of how we might address this, and here's how they would benefit students. You're always 4 steps ahead. You're always thinking about the strategies that will benefit students, and you're crazy smart. And you always have contingency after contingency, which means that our students in this pandemic were never left behind. Our students were fed. Our students had devices. Our students had supports. And just that, such a student focus is so incredible. And I really believe that if we hadn't had the pandemic, those goals we set in 2019 would have been a reality by 22. And I am heartbroken that our students didn't get that opportunity because of global factors, but I truly believe with your leadership that we will make a difference in PPS, we will change the culture, and our students will see those results. So I just want to thank you. I know that other people were dangling lots of pretty shiny baubles at you, and I'm really thankful that you have chosen to continue this work that you started here in PPS.
I want to just go ahead. I won't be very long. Want to also just appreciate that when I first started here in 2019, I thought, probably like some of us do, that we're going to come in and see results in a year or two. And I now understand 2.5 years in that we need to take a long-term sustainable approach to these efforts. We need to not look at kind of whacking the thing that's right in front of us, but rather take the long game. And I really, really understand now that taking these approaches, measuring these inputs, that we will see really strong results in the coming years. I'm just really pleased about where we are tonight, and really again want to thank everyone that provided input to this. It's not a this is definitely a team sport.
So, yeah, if I can sort of add, thanks. I actually was going to second what Chair DePass said the first time. I'm going to now second it again. So thanks.
That's why you're such a good vice chair.
I know, right? It's I can't say it any better. I mean, I do think that fixing the historical inequities that you talked about and the structural racism is really hard work, and it is work Superintendent, that you have been and continue to be focused on, and not just at PPS, but I think over your entire career, we've seen that. And I believe that you share both the board and the community sense of urgency around this issue. I think it's worth noting that simply having a sense of urgency doesn't guarantee progress. And I think it's important that we have that, and I'm so excited to be on a board that is really pushing for that. But that's not what gets us the progress. What gets us the progress is that really difficult work of making the systemic changes that are necessary to break down the racist institutions and rebuild them in a more equitable way. And Chair DeVos, you outlined some of those changes that you've done since you've been here, in your remarks, and I think we see where that's going. And kind of, Director Lowry, what you said, I really believe that before COVID hit in 2020, we were poised to start seeing the benefits from some of the changes that you had put in place. I think the pandemic disrupted learning for all of our students, but we know that impact fell particularly hard on our students of color. And this, is and will continue to be our main focus moving forward, and I know it's going to be yours as well. I do want to thank Chair Lowry for getting the process started last spring. I want to thank Chair DePass for her work on getting us to this point. It wasn't always a smooth process, and it hasn't been speedy, but I do believe we've ended up in a good place. And I want to give a special thanks to Directors Hollins and Green for really engaging fully in this process and helping to sort of move it over the finish line. I think that was really essential. I do just want to put a small note of caution out there, and this is the performance geek, performance management geek in me, but a little note of caution, because I've been doing this work a long time. And the addition of these performance goals that are, into the not just the superintendent's evaluation, but into the contract, it isn't common practice. I've been convinced by my colleagues that the need to act differently, that we need to act differently in order to disrupt historical systems and dare I say, institutions. Thank you, Director Hollins, for that insight. But there are still some concerns that I want us to be careful with. First, I think it's important for us to say publicly, at least I don't believe that performance incentives are going to make the superintendent work any harder for racial equity. I think you and your team work as hard as you can on that every single day. But I think it does send a powerful message to the community. And what we measure matters. And I think in this contract, what we as a board are telling the superintendent we're going to hold him accountable for is increasing the proficiency of Black students, and that's a very good goal. And given conversations I've had with staff, I do believe that in this case, measuring proficiency is reasonable. My note of caution is that there is a danger here that I think we need to highlight, which is that measuring proficiency could result, and I don't think it will, but it could result in leaving some of our most underserved students behind if we're not careful. And just to put really concrete numbers on this, I think we have about 300 Black third graders in the district. Fewer than 50 of them are proficient in reading, which is the massive problem that we are all trying to solve. If we're able to improve the academic performance of 250 of those students, and some of them cross the line into proficiency, that's a success. That's a success that we're all going to be very proud of and stand up and tout. However, if we were to move 10 or 20 of them across the line into proficiency, but leave the rest of them behind, that is a failure. And I think I just want to say that for the record right now. However, the way we're measuring it, it would still show up as a success. I know that Superintendent Guerrero would also view this as a failure, which is why I'm willing to support these measures moving forward. But I do want us to be really careful to ensure that what we are measuring and what we're going to hold the district accountable for is comprehensive in terms of what we want to see in the long run. And again, I'm really confident that you're focused on that, which is why I'm confident moving forward. With that small note of caution, I am really excited for the contract extension. I'm excited that Superintendent Guerrero is willing to continue your work to transform PPS into the world-class district that I think we can be, that's really focused on righting some of those historical wrongs. So thank you to everyone for your help in this, and thank you, Superintendent.
We're only taking nice comments now. Anybody else? Director Hollins.
Yes. A couple of things I just wanted to say. As new on the board, I really want to thank our board because this was not an easy process, right? There was a lot of discussions around some of our views, but the fact that we was able to come together as a board and really agree and now can move in a singular direction, I think that was awesome for me to see that. I wasn't here for all the build-up that the super did. I love hearing from everybody what he has done, and I think as us moving forward, and even with the accountability piece in there, I think it's going to be a charge for us board members, right, to make sure that he has everything he needs in order to do his job, right? And this is just my thought process, but as a board, we're letting everyone know that we're going to be accountable. We're looking at accountability and outcomes, not just from the superintendent, but it's going to go all the way down the line. And I think that is one of the things that I appreciate about this board that I'm on now, is because everybody is in alignment with that, and everybody wants that, and everybody, needs to move in that direction. And so I just want to thank Chair DePaz, Vice Chair Andrew Scott, for your leadership and the conversations along with all the other colleagues as well, because there's been great conversations, there's been great back and forth with that. And I think if we continue that oneness moving forward, we really can do some things different, right? And I want to really acknowledge the superintendent for not just talking the talk about doing stuff different and audacious, but actually doing things different and audacious. His contract is one that has never been done, from my knowledge, in PPS ever. And that says something, right? That says something, that we're not going to just be doing things the same way and expect the same different results. We're going to be doing things different, and everyone needs to be on notice. We're going to be doing stuff different, and that's the direction we're moving in, because it is a sense of urgency that our kids are not being proficient as they need to. And I kind of disagree with the time that it takes to get there, because our kids don't have that long-term plan to wait. Our first graders don't got 5 or 6 years to wait. Our 8th graders don't have 5 or 6 years to wait. We have to do something now, and I solely believe that the superintendent plan and vision and the path that we're on will get us there quicker. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm supporting what he's done. I'm supportive of what he's going to be doing, and he has my full confidence, I'm sure as everyone on the board, that we're going to get there together. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
I'm going to go next because I have a policy of never following Director Green. And it's recycled paper. Sorry.
I was going to ask.
I'm just like you. I have got to write something down. And I'm going to start off a little bit like Director Constam, because I was there at the 5 years ago. Sitting right there is where the original contract got signed. And PPS wasn't on track. There was board infighting. We'd had a superintendent who'd left because of the lead crisis, followed by a failed superintendent search, crumbling buildings, inequitable middle grades experience for our most underserved students, inadequate state funding, dismal and unacceptable student outcomes for our most underserved students. And in that environment, Guadalupe said, Superintendent Guerrero, at the time he was Guadalupe, said yes. And we were all in it together. And there's been a lot of changes, and some of those big challenges have been addressed. The board in the first 42 days hired the superintendent, so we all started together as a leadership team. The 2017 bond that the voters gave us provided the resources to address the lead and the environmental hazards. We opened new school buildings, we opened high schools and also Kellogg. The board and the superintendent have united around a set of common goals for our students. We've opened 3 middle schools, so more than 1,000 students have a more equitable middle grades experience. We've passed the local option that funds 900 teachers. The largest state bond in state history has been passed. The Student Success Act gave us resources to provide the supports for our students that we didn't have. So there's been a lot of things that have changed, and since that time 5 years ago. And I want to thank Superintendent Guerrero for your diligence and hard work in partnership with the board and the community to make those improvements, and also to help us navigate through the pandemic safely. And we all know that there's a really important piece of the work that's still outstanding, that was present 5 years ago and that's still present. And I'm glad that we acknowledge it openly and publicly, that we have a lot of work to do still with the achievement of Black, Native, special ed students of color. And it's not where we all want it to be. And I think that unites us, that we know we can do better on that front, and that we have to do better. As Director Holland said, those kids can't wait for us to get it all figured out. We need to just keep pushing ahead. So yes, we did have a pandemic that disrupted learning, and we need to acknowledge that. I'm glad what I'm hearing tonight, and I know to be true, and everybody, is that we're not going to let the pandemic be the reason why we don't do this really important work. I'll say that, the initial discussions about the contract, I was concerned because of the lack of a connection between student outcomes and for students who hadn't been well served and the compensation. And then also the addition of the provision in the contract that appeared last week that links this to some legislation in Salem, and have great empathy for the superintendents that have been dismissed by their boards for following the law and doing what's right for students in their district. It's a horrible thing. No superintendent should ever be dismissed for that. I also think that it's important that school boards still have the ability to manage performance and also evaluate rigorously the superintendent, because that's how we all get better. And of course, the board needs to evaluate itself, and we always can do better. So what I'm with those concerns. I also recognize that this contract is a big shift in many ways, and not only do we have the funding in place and a lot of the foundational changes, but the inclusion of the goals, and I want to call out Director Hollins and Director Green for really your relentless focus and looking at things in a new way. I mean, this is the beauty of having new board members to come in and look at, hey, the way we were doing things before, including, the superintendent's contract, we need to do things differently if we're going to get different outcomes. And to your point, Director DePass, that the system is structured a particular way, and if we keep doing the same things, we may just continue to get the same results. And so I really want to applaud, and I've supported the efforts to put those specific student outcomes improvement goals in the contract relating to increasing Black third grade language arts proficiency. I don't think I've ever seen a PPS contract that says that. And increasing third grade language arts proficiency for underserved race and ethnicity groups, and increases in Black fifth grade math proficiency. Those are all, I think, really profound changes. And yes, recognizing Director Scott's sort of cautionary note, but I do think if we don't dare to do things differently, we're not going to get different outcomes. So given the fact that that's included in the contract, there's accountability in the contract itself, there's a recognition also that the pandemic has been a huge challenge, and I want to acknowledge that. I mean, we can't talk about student outcomes and what has or hasn't happened without acknowledging that. And I want to acknowledge the superintendent's sort of steady leadership. All of our students and staff were safe, also being a strong voice for equity. So I'm going to be a yes, and I also want to acknowledge that we as a board have work to do. So the contract is between two parties, and the board's work also relates around co-creating an evaluation template with the superintendent, so that there is accountability, and that we're both all clear about what we're shooting for, and how we can provide the superintendent with the greatest level of support. While there may be differences in perspective, I know in the community about the performance goals inclusion in the contract, or there may be different perspectives around the targeted levels of the increases that are there, or that there's pay attached to it. And I agree with you, Director Scott, that the superintendent's not doing it based on pay. It's just how it's structured. With all those different perspectives, it's still clear that something needed to be done differently, and that we should be explicit about the superintendent's role in the success of our students in the contract. And I'm really appreciative, Superintendent Guerrero, that you've embraced that. And I want you to know that the board has a role in supporting the superintendent and PPS staff in improving student outcomes. And by voting yes, I'm indicating how much I'm going to be there providing support and whatever it is that's needed in order for us all to achieve what we want for our students.
Dr. Green, did you have a
I
comment?
definitely have something to say.
Do you have a nice comment?
It's
We're
going to be
taking
as
just-
nice as I can make it.
No, I don't want to. You say what you need to say.
I plan
was kidding.
to. Always plan to. I know there are going to be a lot of people that are going to say that he's only doing this for the money. He's only making these changes because he's getting paid, and he doesn't really care. There are people out there who may be thinking that way, and so to those people that are out there that would say that, I would say I don't give a dang why he's doing it. I am only concerned with the results. If black kids are learning how to read, I don't care that he's doing it to get paid because they're learning how to read. If they're learning how to do math, I don't care that he's doing it to get paid because they're learning how to do math. I am not concerned about the financial aspect, and I believe that when we think that way, our focus is off because we're focusing on a scarcity mindset. He's only doing it because of this, when if we really begin to focus on what I believe that he's focused on, which is the educating all of our students, our black students, our brown students, our native students, our Indian students, our Pacific Islander students, our Asian students, our white students, that all of our students are being educated to the fullest of our ability, that we're making sure that everyone is being seen and that everyone is being heard and that everyone is getting the access to education. I believe that's why we're here. But if for whatever the reason we want to continue to believe that he's only doing it to get paid, then so be it. I don't care. I just want them educated. And so I believe that's the focus of the moms and the dads and the family members out there who have seen what it's like to have kids get passed over and get passed from one grade to the next grade to the next grade, getting into high school reading at a 4th or 5th grade level. They don't care whether or not the superintendent got paid. What they're upset about is that my child is entering high school and they can't read. And so to all of us out there, or all of you out there that would say that, I want to encourage you to refocus, realign your thoughts to what if the reason that he's really doing this is because he too values education? What if the reason that he's out here pushing these efforts now is because he believes and has always believed in the same things that we believe in, which is that everybody deserves access, equal access to good, rigorous education? What if that is the case? And so instead of trying to demonize the soup because we feel, or some feel, he might be doing this because he wants to get paid, how about we celebrate the reality that black kids are now reading at higher levels, that they're doing math at higher levels, that they're comprehending at higher levels? Let us focus on that and not the other stuff, because I don't give a dang if he's doing it because he's wanting to get paid. It's irrelevant to me. All I'm concerned about is whether or not my kids can read. And if they can read, so be it. That's all I wanted to say.
I guess I can understand why Director Edwards did not want to follow you, but as the last person up here, I guess my appreciation is slightly different than other board members because I am a student. So my appreciation stems from a support of student leadership, student excellence, and centering students in all your decisions. One clear example from lit class, you have to provide examples, right? So, illustrating my point, yes. Connecting me with the Council of Great City Schools really springboarded and modeled working with your national counterparts in other districts, and was the impetus, for me at least, working with other student board members from around the country, coming together to form an organization to help support student board members. So my appreciation is for being a role model for working with others from around the country to better all students. Thank you.
That was, I love a good example. That's great. So We can keep embarrassing the superintendent, or we can take
Make a motion?
vote.
Make a motion?
A vote.
Oh, vote, take a vote?
We're going to
Let's
vote on
now.
Resolution
All right.
6446, resolution to authorize superintendent contract extension. All in favor, please indicate by
Yes.
saying yes.
Hang on one second.
Oh,
We have
Roseanne?
public comment.
Oh,
This is
I
public
apologize. Do we have a public comment?
We have public comment, and I also did not hear a motion. Okay. I missed
What
that.
was the second part? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
We have public comment.
We have public comment.
It was hard to hear the motion because I think Director Green was
Sorry.
moving.
I was caught up in the moment.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Our first public comment is Michael Grice.
Mr. Grice, thank you. It's nice to see you.
Point of privilege, Chair. I was just thinking, now that we are open to the public here, what a privilege and a joy it is to see Mr. Grice and to see Roger Kirshner, two of our longtime, deeply involved community members. So it feels good to have you both back.
Season ticket holders.
Don't ever stop coming. Thank you, Mr. Grice.
Should I speak now?
Yes, please.
Yeah. I'm Michael Chappie Grice. I'm a retired educator from the Portland schools and from San Francisco Unified School District. Thank you very much. And I've been privileged to work with the children at Rosa Parks Elementary School in a mentoring capacity. And I'll start off by saying I'm not here to curry favor with the superintendent or with the Board of Education, but just to share with you about 2 minutes worth of thought that have been shared with me by some pretty distinguished educators. One is Congressman Augustus F. Hawkins, who wrote the Title I law, and he would always remind us that black children are the proxy for what ails American education in general. And so as we fashion solutions to help black children, we fashion solutions to help all children. The second is the predicate for the work that I do, and it comes from Dr. Ron Edmonds. And I think it's instructive and directive as much as it is philosophically gigantic. And it's a little saying that goes like this: we can, whenever and wherever we choose, successfully teach all children whose education is of interest to us. We already know more than we need in order to do this. Whether we do it or not must finally depend on how we feel about the fact that we haven't so far. And what brought me here today was to testify that I've been in a lot of school districts, and that revolving door of superintendents has not solved their problem. What solved the problem is the expectations at the building level that we have for our teachers and for our students. I just left my high school students, one of whom is our private pilot, and another who is a senior at Roosevelt High School and is very active almost as in the category of a teacher assistant at that school. And he told me that the minority population has very little aspiration after high school. So that's a very, as Dr. Benjamin Mays, the president of Morehouse College, said, failure is not sin. Low aim is sin. And so until we can elevate the vision of our young people and do it in a way that results in some outcome, and I think that having heard a lot of rhetoric over the years, that the Res J initiative has given me, I've heard a lot of stuff that good, put it on the shelf, and we just keep moving. I have found more substance and more consistency in the staff that brings that forth and give us an opportunity in the community to do things. And I think we're right on the front end of what we can accomplish. Thank you very much, Superintendent and Board of Education.
Thank you for your comments. Very meaningful. And concise, too. Do we have additional public comment, Ms.
Yes.
Powell?
Yes, we have two people virtually. The next is Matt Morton. Oh, I think we just lost Matt Morton. The next is Mashari Tyson.
Good evening, Ms. Tyson.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
We can. Thank you for being here.
Oh, good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Mashari Tyson with Black Excellence Group, and I really appreciate the privilege to speak to you today on behalf of Black Excellence Group and being a racial equity and social justice partner within the community. We are pleased to support Superintendent Guerrero's extension of his contract. It was a pleasure to see that coming across, and we just wanted to take a moment to highlight some of the things that we've deeply appreciated that we've seen from you, Superintendent Guerrero. So we're in full support of your extension. You have promised to make progress for Black and Latino students and make that your North Star. Something that I have really appreciated watching you speak publicly in all the district emails and meetings and focus groups and working sessions is the heart for the students that you demonstrate. And a lot of different folks tonight have talked about the student-centered approach and the equity lens that you bring to the work, and it's always evident. And I really have appreciated that. You come across like a genuine leader that, frankly, the strategic plan has rolled out in a way that touches all of the groups that we've interacted with and is very clear about the trajectory that everyone is headed. And so I heard you say, I've seen it in articles, and I heard you say it again tonight, our work is not finished. And I'll touch on that in a moment, but I want to recognize some of the areas that I've appreciated so much that your fingerprint has been on. The vision, the collaboration, the advocacy for our students, with the strategic plan, the focus on the sense of belonging among the students, and keeping the racial equity and social justice lens, and emphasizing equitable outcomes is really powerful. And we don't take it lightly because that is not the case in every district across this country. And it is amazing to see that said and demonstrated over and over again, even when it takes courage to say it out loud publicly. The PPS Reimagined Portrait of a Graduate, the focus on representation among the staff in the buildings that the students are seeing, the Wallace Grant and the Principal Pipeline and the Coach to Educator, all these initiatives are making the difference and shifting things for our students. Just the concept and vision behind the Innovation Studio and their equity lens, the BIPOC financial focus group that was done among parents and partners, the commitment to protect Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School as that protected legacy Black school so that they won't be displaced. All these areas have really stuck out as an example of the way that you're leading and the trajectory that you're shifting this district. And from our family's perspective, many of our families have a healthy, I would say, impatience with the outcomes that we want to see among the students, which is a shared desired outcome that I know you have, and I've seen through the commitment of the plans that you've developed and the communications of where we're headed. And so when you say our work isn't finished, I trust you. I've seen your work, and I believe in the direction that you're taking our students and our staff and our group. And so I'm excited for the next chapter of where all of these plans are going, because I believe you are the right leader to take us there. And I've appreciated your courage. And I will just ask and push, and I know your team pushes all the time, that as we all are trying to accomplish the goals that we were hoping for by spring of 2022, as we're looking forward and doing forecasting and budget planning, unpacking and trying to look at what are contributing factors to accomplishing those outcomes, equitable outcomes for our students, and then double and tripling down on the investment that it's going to take in order to meaningfully shift that needle quickly. Because when you hear from parents and you hear from students, there isn't time to wait. And I think you've heard that. And so that belief gap that is there within the school-based level, the school level, where we are eagerly awaiting the investment to shift what it looks like at the ground level within the schools, so that we can really realize the kind of tactical plans for all these large, audacious goals that we have for the future. So we're in full support. I'm so happy that you're the leader that we have taking us into the future within the Portland Public School District. And I believe in you. And I'll also be here and open to collaborating on how we actually move the needle in a meaningful way, but in an accelerated fashion. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
And lastly, Matt Morton has joined us again.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for being here, Mr. Morton.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to join you all tonight. I want to thank you so much for the opportunity to provide some comments on the renewal of the superintendent's contract. As a longtime our former school board member and now a funding partner with Portland Public Schools, I've had the opportunity to witness PPS's journey with perhaps a unique perspective, interest, and understanding. I remember sitting in your seats, and I want to deeply, deeply thank you for your time and service to our community. Like many in my community, I'm thrilled to see how the board continues to diversify and how the commitment to racial justice continues and actually grows. The last 2 years have been incredibly difficult. I've looked on in gratitude for Superintendent Guerrero, who, as we know, he signed up for a challenge, has experienced challenges far beyond what we could have imagined. I've been impressed with his steadfast leadership and his quiet determination to radically and permanently improve our school district. As school districts across Oregon, the Pacific Northwest, and even the country are faced with superintendent turnover, an overtaxed workforce, and students with unprecedented levels of need, Superintendent Guerrero has kept a laser focus on what's important: building the capacity and the sustainability of a system to create the conditions for success. He has been unapologetic in his priority for Black and Native students, and he shepherded an investment approach that includes communities of color as part of the solution. In my day job at Mar Memorial Trust, we invest in several of the same organizations at PPS. And for the last 4 decades, we know that it's been these organizations that have been the safety net for communities of color, when so often the public investment has either disappeared or been swept under the rug. As I work with these organizations today, I hear about the importance of working with PPS and all of the possibilities and opportunities that come with that. Superintendent Guerrero has instilled an approach that doesn't prescribe a sterile, out-of-touch academic exercise, but rather recognizes the importance of racial equity working hand in hand with culturally responsive, sustaining pedagogy and an instructional framework that really is there and needed for in terms of supporting our students of color. Thinking back to my participation in the visioning process and looking at the extraordinary return to school this fall, the comprehensive set of summer supports, and the sheer number of organizations invested in the success of students at PPS. These are real life examples of the vision of the superintendent coming into focus under his leadership. Truly, congratulations to the board for recruiting and retaining a national talent who I'm confident will help us realize our community's aspirations for our district. And however, progress continues. We're staying the course. thanks to the leadership and capability of the superintendent who consistently lives his commitment, walks his talk, and centers students. I think we all know that we need that kind of leadership and more of it in Portland. And I really do look forward to seeing how our potential how our potential continues and our opportunities at PPS are realized. Thank you so much for your time and have a good night.
Thank you so much. Ms. Powell?
That's it.
That's it for our public comments. Thank you to everybody who especially showed up in person. I can't tell you how good it is to see you here in the room with us, Mr. Grice. So the board will now vote on Resolution 6446, resolution to authorize the superintendent contract extension. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed?
Yes, I forgot to say yes.
Yes. All opposed, please indicate by saying no. And then are there any abstentions? Resolution 6446 is approved by a vote of 7-0, with Student Representative Weinberg voting
Yes.
fantastic.
Chair, I hope you won't mind. Everyone else got a chance to speak. I won't take more than a minute to share some ad lib remarks here, but thank you. Thank you, Chair and directors, for your comments, for unexpected testimony from community leaders. I don't take lightly your support and confidence. I think for 30 years, I've dedicated my life to a career in public ed. I've tried to lead with integrity, whether as a community organizer or a teacher or a principal or a district leader, have always tried to maintain core values that ask myself if it's good for students, if it's going to ultimately produce opportunities and improved outcomes. I think, and the last 5 years, thank you for highlighting, half of my tenure here has been in a pandemic, which is a bit frustrating to me. I mean, it was an opportunity to lend leadership through it, but also I know that we would be a little further along in some areas. But I think I shared 5 years ago in that garden at Sabin Elementary, Director Constam and then Chair Brim Edwards were there. I think I shared a phrase, coming to Portland represents an opportunity to make an exponential difference. I understood that there was an elected school board interested in transformation and the changes that means, that infers. And what I heard this evening in your supportive statements is a mandate. And I heard a willingness to partner in making what might be difficult decisions and trade-offs, because I do think we share audacious goals. I came here because I saw an opportunity to take Portland Public Schools to be one of those premier school systems in the country. And I think we are on the national level in some of our initiatives. And I am excited about, what emerged as a conversation with students here one day a couple of years ago, get to the first reading you saw tonight about climate justice. And you've seen our students step up and lead in a number of areas during my tenure here. But when I hear this mandate from you, I know that some of the work we have ahead might come across as a bit bold, maybe a little bit controversial. It may mean doing the work a little bit differently if we want to see different kinds of results. And so we'll count on each other in those moments to be clear with our community about our rationale so that we can get to narrowing those opportunity gaps that haven't produced the equitable outcomes that I know we want to see, which is what attracted me to this post in the first place. So thank you for that. Any accolades that I heard this evening, I have to give attribution to a very dynamic leadership team. Our hardworking school leaders, our dedicated educators who've had an experience as of late, unlike any other, the last couple hundred years in public ed. We also learned a lot because I want to be forward thinking about the lessons. We've learned technology can be a tool, but more importantly, we've learned that relationships are so critical to the learning process, that sense of belonging and care is absolutely critical. We see it in the Readiness to Learn challenges today back on campus. And so you will be seeing a budget proposal that tries to prioritize. I'm thankful that prior to this pandemic, the student investment account gave us the opportunity to make some investments up front. I fear where we would be if we didn't have all those extra social workers and mental behavioral health supports, and we need more. I really need to thank the educators and all of the support staff who every day have our talented students in front of them. There was a night in the late 80s where I got off the Greyhound in downtown LA with nothing but a duffel bag and my violin, and the next morning was supposed to be my first day in college. And I didn't have the benefit of a counselor, and we're celebrating them this evening and this month. I had to navigate all of that, and I didn't have anything but sort of enough confidence that I had an ability to learn, that I had some level of talent, and that I was going to have to figure it out. But it also doesn't have to be that hard. I think we stand on the shoulders of many people who've tried to pave the way so that our students are able to discover their passion. I think that's what's exciting about some of the work that we laid out in our vision and in our strategic plan. Things like taking those awkward middle years to discover what it is that you're passionate about, to have exploratory wheels, because maybe you discover that CTE is something you want to pursue after high school, or maybe it's the arts, which I hope you've seen evidence of my continuing to champion, and you will also see, as a preview in my budget proposal, continued closure of our arts pathway, so any student, regardless of school, can pursue one of those artistic disciplines. Or maybe you decide you like the more academic route. Either way, you have options as a student, and hopefully you go into high school with a better sense of what it is that you want to pursue. So, those are just a couple of examples articulated a blueprint for. I know that a lot of our work sometimes isn't completely visible to our broader community. I think they see under our administration and our tenure here at the dais, brand new, beautiful, modernized buildings, and we'll continue to focus on all those health and safety and teaching and learning environments, and more are on deck. And that's an accomplishment that our students and our educators can just feel every day when they walk on campus to work or to learn. And then there's a lot of other work that's less tangible, but that are the foundational building blocks of the work that we need to do. Things that a school system has an obligation to make sure it's providing: a standards-based curriculum, an array of instructional pedagogies that it supports and coaches teachers with, a balanced assessment system so we know whether students are learning or not, and a clear diagnosis of what steps we need to take next. It needs to offer a catalog of professional learning and leadership development. It needs to have diverse workforce pipelines. We've made some inroads there, and we have a lot more to do. We're thankful for some of the initiatives. They're going to keep building out that work. It's one of the key themes in our strategic plan. So we have a lot of prospective work ahead, is what I'm saying. Our work certainly isn't done until those gaps are well within reach, until our students all have the same broad on and off ramp from PPS to pursue whatever passion or gift they want to continue to explore. So my appreciation to the school board for that work ahead. We will continue to stay focused on student achievement, especially those for whom they've often been furthest from the opportunity of demonstrating their full potential. I'm appreciative to all the educators and leaders and support staff of the organization, to our community leaders, to our parents and our families. Thank you for maintaining faith that a counter narrative will be produced here at Portland Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent. I think that wraps up our business, unless we have anything else to discuss tonight. Anyone? Meeting is adjourned.